Hey everybody, welcome to the Art of Comics. I'm your host, Andres Salazar. Again, we're continuing our little series about the comic master, Alex Toth. I'm very excited about this little series of videos I'm doing. We're now on episode 4. Part 4, we're going through this book here, which is by IDW, Genius Isolated, The Life and Art of Alex Toth. So, this book is, again, IDW, great book. We're going to go through this book here. There's others we're going to talk about as well. So right now in part 4, we are jumping into the mid-50s. This is 1954. Alex was drafted into the Army. At the age of 25, he worked for the quartermaster. He worked for 2 years. He served in the Army. And he worked under the quartermaster, drafted, and was stationed in Japan. So he's in Japan. He has a second wife during this time that we don't really know much about. And so he goes through a number of relationships in his life. And a lot of that could just be his personality, and we'll kind of dive into some of those elements, and just his passion and drive for his work. So he's in the Army, works as the quartermaster, and he actually gets a role as the art director for the newspaper. So the military has this newspaper, and his job is to kind of jazz it up. And this is a great opportunity for him to be creative, to kind of have that outlet to, while he's in the forces, do something that he's skilled at and then actually could improve his skills. So he did cartoons. He did these daily cartoons, which we're going to see here, for their like little newspaper. And then he has this idea. Now he's had this comic called John Furi, and he had it a while back, and he was pitching it to companies back when he was in New York, and he kind of put it on the back burner, never really went anywhere, and he pulled that all out, and he used John Furi, and he got that kind of working for the newspaper. So he did a daily one-page comic for the military newspaper, and this was the first time that Alex did everything. So this was actually really cool. This was important for him. It's a definite huge milestone. This is he did, the penciling, the lettering, the scripting, the inking, the whole thing from soup to nuts. This was his project, and he loved every minute. He even says, "I loved every minute of it, tough or easy, day from day, between my other duties on the paper. I was taking on much more responsibility for the work previously assigned to our civilian artist and added job of non-comp P10. So he did all these other things, writing for news stories and such, but he loved doing this. This was like a passion for him. One of the things he liked about it, he mentions, is the automatic, immediate feedback he got. Positive and negative. He got feedback in the mess hall on Thursdays. He saw the boys, and they gave him feedback on how much they loved it or whatever. And so that was like important to him. And it was good as a creative force to be able to get that immediate, I'm working on a book right now. No one's going to see a light of day of this for at least a year. And I question myself all the time. Like, is this even good? Are people going to like it? Am I in the right ballpark? You know what I mean? So to be able to have that immediate feedback is so critical in the creative process. What a blessing for him. So this book is awesome in that it actually has some of these pages. Now, he talks a little bit about how he had to do it. They had like this kind of a wax paper he had to write on, so it wasn't like Bristol board. He had to draw these on this kind of a waxy kind of paper. He had to kind of concoct a type of ink that would work on it, that he could still erase, and it was super kind of challenging just to kind of get the technical aspects of it, because this, of course, wasn't built for, printing. He didn't have all the good equipment he had back in New York, so he had to do what he did, but he made do, and this is some great comic. He had these cool logos, and we're going to see the evolution of these logos in time. The story is this kind of a kind of noir story, kind of a crime noir. This man, John Furi, is going to Japan to look for his twin brother Dirk, who's a pilot for the military, and he gets caught up in this fencing, black market deal, and he's gonna get axed and stuff. And so this is kind of a really fun story. This is him letters. So if you want to look at how he lettered and the way he did things, this is it. And he used, I was told at least, he used at some point in his career one of these Pentel writers. So these are like rollerball writers, and he used these pens at some point. I don't know if it was for this or if it was later when he did the kind of Hanna-Barbera stuff, but great work. This was, of course, black and white. There were 600 copies he made out for the paper, and he would do this, and this was like a daily comic. It's pretty epic. Really great stuff. I love some of the positioning. Again, great sense of composition, the staging, the placement of figures and objects in space, right? Great shadows, wonderful blacks. Just really had a great sense of using the blacks. And there's no zipatone, there's none of that. It's just, him putting in some texture if needed. So none of the fancy stuff in there. Look at that great rendering of the car. I'd love to know how he got some of his reference stuff, how he was able to get a hold of it. I don't know. I'm sure if he got leave to go off base, in Japan, there's plenty of places to get reference for stuff or photographs. I don't know, but it'd be kind of interesting to see how he pulled this together. So he did this. This was a great experience for him. Some great, really cool images. I like that a lot too. Very noir-y. Remember, this is in the 50s. This is 54, 55. And this stuff is, the logo changed, you can tell. This stuff is just as good now as then. It's amazing to think of that this is like 70 years old, 65 years old. And it is really well done still. Even the lettering, all this stuff is just so good. I am thoroughly impressed at this kid at the age of 25 is banging these out, Logo changed again. So this was just a really great thing for him. This is great too. Look at that. This is a really cool page. I like that a lot. That's good. Here now you see he's using a typewriter, and I'll be candid, I haven't read this story yet, so I need to kind of do that. I'm going to try to do that this week and just kind of take a look at this one and see what's going on. I'm curious if in this latter, and look, his logo is so different now. I'm curious about this, if this was just more of a time-saving thing, or if maybe he had somebody that helped him type this up. Would it be quicker to type this up versus, handwrite it? But look at how the art changes, though, because this is like a very kind of classic, with word balloons and stuff like this. And now it's like, it's very different. It's very wordy, too. It's extremely wordy. So I definitely have to read this and see what's going on here. Why did he almost change the format of it? So I got to get into that for sure this week. So the aftermath. So when he left the military, got out of the military, he went back to New York looking for jobs, and the industry was it just pretty much crashed. He talked to Stan Lee. Stan Lee said, "Get out, do whatever you can to get out of it because there's no jobs. I can only pay $22 a page." So $22 a page was the rate at the time. It was not enough to kind of survive on, but he did a couple jobs for Atlas, which became later Marvel. This is one of them, and this is beautiful. I love this. This is super. Just I love these. I'm gonna have to probably just draw this sometime this week just to kind of like play with it. This is just so good right here. This whole page right here is amazing. 57, April 57, this issue came out. So he did a couple of freelance gigs, and then he moves back to, it's great there, all this stuff. And then he moves back to California. Moves to California, he meets a girl, wife number 3, Christine, and he works for a company called Western. Western, a lot of what they did were those golden books, and they also had Dell. So Dell did comics. A lot of the comics for Dell were these adaptations of movies and TV shows. So they would have these photo covers, which Alex would help design, and then there would be a comic in there. And so I'm going to call it just Western because that's how the book kind of, that's the parent company, but it's these Dell Comics, which was part of Western. And he did this for a while. He did Westerns. He did that kind of work. I mean, this is brilliant. If you look at this stuff, it is just amazing. I mean, it's just getting better and better, right, as we go through this stuff. So he does that. He also works for a company called 4Color Comics. 4Color Comics, similar to Dell, are doing these kind of TV movie adaptations. This is showing his studio. He got just like a little like apartment / studio to kind of work in, because he had all these him and his wife Christine had these kids, and so he needed to get a little space. We're going to talk about Zorro here in a second, because that's when Zorro comes on the scene. So he's working for this company, working for Western, does these comics also for 4Color Comics or 4Color series. And this is a brilliant story, by the way. And then he gets this assignment to do Zorro. Zorro becomes a huge passion for him. And Zorro becomes this whole deal where he loves it to death. It is his dream. He is doing all this research. He loved Errol Flynn movies. He loved all the kind of swashbuckling sword work. He went to this TV studio to watch the TV show to get some reference, and he loved this. There becomes a problem. He hated the scripts, hated what the writers were doing with it, and he started going, probably pushing his stewardship or his boundaries. He would rewrite the script, rewrite the word balloons, change things to a degree in which management was like, hey man, you can't do that. They're like, hey, you're the artist, you're not the writer. And he would get so upset at getting these lame duck scripts, and he would rewrite it, and they would put in all these things that he didn't want. He didn't feel it was true to the character, to the world of Zorro. That was his last stand. He went to his office, to the management. He had a letter of 11 bullet points that outlined his grievances and said, this is my issue with you guys. These are the things that you guys are doing that are ruining this book and ruining this experience. When he did, he basically just said, look, I'm that good. You know I'm good. You're messing this up. And let me tell you why. And that was pretty much the end of him with Western. So he left Western Comics, and that was it. So people love Zorro, but in a lot of ways, he hated Zorro because of those experiences he had with it. This was colored. They went back. They did black and white, and he actually did some tones on it. And what we're gonna do is the next episodes we're gonna jump into Zorro specifically. So we're gonna talk about Zorro. We're gonna go through this book. This has been reprinted a million times, but this is by Image. And then we're also gonna go back to the Standard comics and talk about Standard. And all these are amazing. I was reading these on Saturday, and these are the kind of more romance comics and stuff. This is great. Both of these are amazing. So that's the next episodes, and then we'll finish up this book. This book's almost done, and then we'll get into the next one. So we're going to stop here with Zorro, and we're going to get more into why everyone loves his Zorro, why it's brilliant, why he kind of hates it, or at least has a lot of problems with that time working with editorial and the other creatives with it. So there you go right now. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. Have a great week. Every Tuesday, every Saturday, I got new videos here. I've got my podcast that comes out every Monday, every Friday. Check out my Patreon, all that stuff. Click the subscribe. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Have a wonderful time. Be safe, be sane, and tell your story.